Imagine opening a restaurant where customers can eat as much pizza as they want for less than $10. It initially sounds like a terrible business idea. Yet, for decades, Cici's Pizza turned this concept into one of America's fastest-growing restaurant chains. Families loved it, and kids couldn't get enough. At its peak, the company operated hundreds of locations nationwide and served millions of customers each year. From the outside, Cici's appeared unstoppable. However, beneath the endless pizza slices and crowded dining rooms, a financial time bomb was quietly ticking away. Eventually, this bomb went off, and the company that had built its reputation on unlimited food found itself filing for bankruptcy. What is fascinating about this story is that Cici's didn't collapse because Americans stopped liking pizza. In fact, pizza remains one of the most popular foods in the United States. The company wasn't destroyed by a single bad CEO or one disastrous business decision. Instead, Cici's became trapped by the very thing that had made it successful. The business model that helped it grow into a national chain eventually became the same model that nearly destroyed it. Understanding how this happened reveals why this story is one of the most interesting business case studies in the restaurant industry. The story begins in 1985 in Plano, Texas, when Joe Croce and Mike Cole opened the first Cici's Pizza restaurant. Their idea was incredibly simple. While most pizza restaurants focused on selling individual pizzas, Cici's offered customers an all-you-can-eat buffet at a price almost anyone could afford. Customers could enjoy unlimited pizza, pasta, salad, and dessert for a fraction of what a family might spend at a traditional sit-down restaurant. The concept took off almost immediately. Parents appreciated the value, teenagers enjoyed the unlimited food, and large groups loved the convenience. The buffet format created a fun and affordable experience. For many families, a trip to Cici's became a weekly tradition. As word spread, the company expanded rapidly, first opening new locations across Texas, then throughout the South, and eventually across the entire United States. For years, everything seemed to be working perfectly. Sales were growing, franchisees were opening new stores, and customers kept showing up. By the early 2000s, Cici's had become one of the largest pizza buffet chains in America, operating more than 650 restaurants at its peak. In hindsight, it appeared the business had discovered a secret formula for success. However, hidden beneath all that growth was a dangerous problem that very few people noticed. The entire business depended on a delicate balancing act. Every time a customer walked through the door, Cici's hoped that person wouldn't eat too much. That might sound amusing, but it was actually the biggest weakness in the company's business model. Consider this. If a customer paid $8 and consumed $4 worth of food, the restaurant made a healthy profit. However, if another customer paid the same $8 but consumed $12 or $15 worth of food, the restaurant incurred a loss. The entire system depended on averages, requiring enough light eaters to offset the heavy eaters. For many years, this balancing act worked, but a problem arose. Costs kept rising. Cheese became more expensive, meat prices rose, labor costs increased, and rent and utility bills continued to climb. Almost every expense involved in running the restaurant rose steadily. Yet, Cici's had built its reputation around being extremely affordable. This created a dangerous situation. Raising prices too aggressively risked alienating customers who specifically sought out bargains. At the same time, keeping prices low further tightened profit margins each year. The company found itself trapped between rising costs and customer expectations. Compounding the issue, consumer preferences began to change. During the 1990s, buffet restaurants were incredibly popular. However, by the late 2000 and early 2010s, more health-conscious eating habits emerged. Fresh ingredients gained importance, and customization became highly desirable. Fast casual chains like Chipotle demonstrated that customers were willing to pay more for food that felt personalized and freshly prepared. As a result, the appeal of unlimited buffets diminished. Younger consumers increasingly favored convenience, freshness, and customization over quantity. While Cici's retained loyal customers, attracting new generations of diners became more challenging. Then, a new threat emerged that buffet restaurants were ill-prepared for: the rise of delivery apps. Companies like Domino's, Pizza Hut, Uber Eats, and DoorDash transformed the way people order food. Customers no longer needed to leave their homes. With just a few taps on a smartphone, dinner could conveniently arrive at their front door. This shift fundamentally changed consumer behavior. Here's where things got really interesting. A pizza restaurant can easily adapt to delivery, while a buffet restaurant cannot. The entire value of a buffet lies within the dining room. You can't deliver unlimited pizza, nor can you replicate the buffet experience. The excitement of walking up to a food station and choosing whatever you want is unique to dining in. As competitors thrived during the delivery revolution, Cici's was stuck with a business model that required customers to visit the restaurant in person. As customer traffic gradually declined, the economics became increasingly challenging. Restaurants face enormous fixed costs. Rent must be paid whether 100 customers show up or 1,000. Employees must be scheduled, equipment must be maintained, and utilities must be paid. Once customer numbers begin to fall, profitability can disappear surprisingly quickly. Then, just as the company was already under pressure, an event occurred that, overnight, exacerbated every weakness in the business. The COVID-19 pandemic changed the restaurant industry forever, and buffet chains were hit especially hard. Almost everything that made buffets attractive suddenly turned into a liability. Shared serving stations, large crowds, and self-service dining became things that consumers actively avoided. Traffic collapsed across the industry. Dining rooms closed, and customers stayed home. Unlike many competitors, buffet chains couldn't easily adapt their business models. Delivery wasn't a natural fit, and takeout couldn't replace the dining experience. The very factors that made Cici successful had now become its greatest weaknesses. It's important to note that the pandemic didn't create Cici's problems, it merely exposed them. Many people think businesses fail because of a single crisis. In reality, most businesses fail because a crisis reveals long-standing issues. Here's a part of the story that often goes unheard. When people observe a bankruptcy, they typically ask one question: what killed the company? However, astute investors ask a different question: why didn't anyone see this coming? Because the warning signs were everywhere. Imagine walking into a busy Cici's restaurant in 2010. The dining room is packed. Kids are running around with slices of pizza. The buffet stations are full and the parking lot is crowded. To the average customer, the business appears incredibly healthy. But appearances can be deceptive. One of the most dangerous situations in business is when a company appears successful while weakening beneath the surface. It's like a tree that appears strong from the outside but is slowly rotting from the inside. Everything looks fine until the first major storm arrives. And that's exactly what happened to Cici's. The company became addicted to growth. For years, opening new locations solved many problems. If sales slowed in one market, new stores in another area could make the overall numbers look better. Investors loved growth, franchise owners loved growth, and management loved growth. It made everyone feel successful. However, growth can sometimes mask weaknesses rather than fix them. Think about a person using a credit card to pay off another credit card. For a while, everything appears normal. The bills get paid, and the lifestyle continues. Nobody notices a problem, but eventually, reality catches up. Many companies experience something similar. They become so focused on expansion that they stop asking a critical question. If we stopped growing tomorrow, would this business still be strong? For Cici's, that question became increasingly uncomfortable. As consumer habits changed, the buffet model no longer attracted customers as easily as before. Yet the company's entire system had been built when Buffett's were booming. What worked perfectly in the 1990s didn't necessarily work in the 2010s. Now, here's the surprising part. The problem wasn't the pizza or even the buffet. The real issue was that Cici's was competing in a completely different industry than most people realized. Many assume Cici's competes against Pizza Hut, Domino's, and Papa John's. It didn't. Cici's competed against family entertainment. When parents took their children to Cici's, they weren't merely buying food, they were buying an experience. The arcade games, the buffet, the atmosphere, and the ability for everyone to eat what they wanted made it feel like an event. But then, smartphones arrived. Streaming services emerged. Video games improved, and entertainment options exploded. Families suddenly had thousands of ways to spend their time and money. Without realizing it, Cici's was losing not just restaurant customers, but entertainment dollars. This is a much tougher battle to win. This is one of the most important lessons in business. Your biggest competitor is often not who you think it is. Netflix didn't just compete against other streaming companies, it competed against sleep, social media, gaming, and every other way people spend their free time. Likewise, Cici's wasn't simply competing against pizza restaurants, it was competing against every alternative family activity in America. Once you understand that, the story of Cici's bankruptcy becomes much more significant than just pizza. It's a story about adaptation. The companies that survive for decades are not always the smartest or the biggest. They are usually the ones willing to reinvent themselves before they are forced to. Unfortunately for Cici's, by the time the pressure became impossible to ignore, the company had already lost years that could have been used to evolve. Then the pandemic arrived and turned a slow leak into a flood. The result was bankruptcy, but the real cause was something much deeper. A business model built for yesterday trying to survive in tomorrow's world. The pandemic simply forced Cici's to confront challenges it had been struggling with long before 2020. By January 2021, the pressure had become too much. The company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. For many Americans, the news was shocking. How could a restaurant chain that seemed so popular end up in bankruptcy? The answer wasn't the pizza, competition, or bad luck. The answer was that the world had changed, but the business model hadn't adapted quickly enough.